Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you all to another episode of the Boombox Guru, and I'm your host, LB. So today, I wanted to revisit my Gang Starr CD collection, focusing on the studio albums. And to all my old subscribers, some of you may remember like several years ago, a long time ago, when I first started really posting videos up on my channel. I actually did a video way back then on my Gang Starr CDs. But since that time, Gang Starr actually has put out one more album. And also, I don't think that video is really is great because I think I do a real better job than I did back then as far as making videos. So I thought I would just revisit my Gang Starr CDs and include their most recent album that came out 2 years ago. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and go through this, because I don't want to keep you guys too long. So we're gonna start with the first album, the debut album by Gang Starr, called "No More Mr. Nice Guy," released in 1989 on Wild Pitch Records. And to my knowledge, this was their only album released on Wild Pitch Records. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really listen to No More Mr. Nice Guy very much. I really don't. Usually when I get on a Gang Starr kick, I usually start from the second album to the last one. This one, every once in a while, I might pop it in and listen to it. But the only song on here that I really enjoy is Words I Manifest. And I believe that was the big hit from this record, Words I Manifest. That's really the only song from this album I really like. I don't know. I just don't feel No More Mr. Nice Guy is really as good as the albums that came later. And I feel that Words I Manifest is really the only song that really shows that Gang Starr sound. Because for the most part, on this album, the group, or excuse me, the duo they hadn't really developed their sound just yet. You don't really hear that classic Primo uh, type production. I mean, Guru's solid, as far as lyricists, but I just don't think neither one of them had really came into their own just yet. But this is their first record, But yeah, as far as Words I Manifest, that's really the only song on here that I really like. So yeah, there's not much I really listen to on this record. I think I mainly just bought it, for collection purposes. But it's a decent debut album, but I just think the ones they did afterwards were better. So let's go to the second album, which is called Step in the Arena, released in 1991. Now this record right here, this was the album that really I think catapulted Gang Starr. This was their breakthrough record. This was the one where people really started to pay attention to them. And I mean, this is the one that has who's gonna take the weight and just to get a rep, classic Gang Starr tracks, signature Gang Starr songs, man. I mean, just wonderful songs, man. I mean, this whole album was great, and this was the beginning of where Primo and Guru were starting to really find their sound. This is when you started hearing that classic Primo type production, because everybody knows when they hear a Primo beat, and this was the beginning of that. And I think I think he really was coming into his own as well with that smooth delivery, but yet lyrical. Just a lot of great songs on here. My only gripe about this album is that it doesn't have the full version of Just to Get a Rep. Because if anybody that's ever seen the video for Just to Get a Rep, Guru actually had an extra verse in that song, but it's not on this album. So that's really my only gripe about this album. Other than that, man, this was a really good record. Honestly, I feel like that this was really Gang Starr's true debut album right here. That's just me personally. I feel like Step in the Arena was where, they really started to come into their own. But yeah, one of my favorite albums from Gang Starr, and one that I listen to quite often as well. All right, so we go to the next album, which is Daily Operation, released in 1992, man. And this right here, this is my favorite Gang Starr album right here, man. I like everything from the album cover. I mean, come on, that's got to be one of the greatest album covers in hip hop, in my opinion. But yeah, man, Daily Operation. This was the album that really got me into Gang Starr, because anybody that's familiar with the video game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the in-game radio station Playback FM had the song BYS by Gang Starr on that radio station, and that was one of my favorite songs on that video game. And that was the song that really sent me on my journey into really getting more into Gang Starr, and really digging deep into their discography and discovering more of their albums and classic songs. But other than that, man, to me, this is where Gang Starr really became Gang Starr. This is where they really became Gang Starr. To me, this is where Primo really solidified his signature sound. And I think Guru really started to really step it up as a lyricist, man, because he's really starting to bring in a lot more like introspective subject matter. He's being political and socially conscious, all kinds of things, man. He's just really, both of them were really coming into their own on this record. And not to go on and on about this album, but I also want to say that this is their album that really, should I say, innovated New York hip hop as far as the sound. I think a lot of artists were influenced by the sound that these guys developed on this record, man, that they put together, because those boom bap, hard hitting, sparse beats. I just think that it was a huge influence on records that came out later. I think if it wasn't for this record, you wouldn't have had like stuff like Black Moon, or maybe like 36 Chambers or Illmatic and things of that nature. I always feel that this album was the precursor to like New York hardcore hip hop, man, especially with those sparse, hard hitting beats that were developed on this record, man. I mean, it's just a wonderful record, man, and it's one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time. And it's definitely one of my favorite Gang Starr albums, man. But so many great songs. There's just too many on here to name. But, of course, BYS, No Shame in My Game, Take It Personal, The Place Where We Dwell, Soliloquy of Chaos, Flip the Script, Too Deep. Just everything on this album is just so dope, man. I could talk about this album for the rest of the video, but just one of my favorites, man. I might even do a solo album review on this one day. So, be on the lookout for that. But yeah, Daily Operation, one of my all-time favorites. All right, so next album is Hard to Earn, released in 1994. And again, for me, I think this album, they expanded upon what they had already established on Daily Operation, but they came harder. And I remember reading somewhere where Primo, he deliberately chose not to listen to any like jazz type stuff. He wanted to go for a more harder edge on this record, hence the title Hard to Earn. Because after they did that song called Jazz Theme for the Mo Better Blues soundtrack, people were lumping Gang Starr into the whole jazz rap category, which that's not what they were. That's not what they were. That was something that they did for that particular movie and that soundtrack. But yeah, Primo, he deliberately didn't want to put any type of jazz samples on this album. And this is just another hard hitting hip hop record. And also, I found out this maybe a year or two ago. Guru was actually intoxicated during most of the recording of this album. I know the first song on the album, A Long Way to Go. I found out that in an interview that I think that Primo did, where he said that Guru was drunk when he recorded that verse. He was drunk, and but it is what it is. I think this was kind of like at the peak of him, like during his alcoholism and stuff like that. But yeah, he was drunk, and now when I listen to that song, I can kind of hear it. I can kind of hear him like slurring his his words a little bit. So I'm like, yeah, he is drunk. And I think when they recorded the song Dwick with Nice and Smooth, I heard that he was also intoxicated, and he had to redo his verse because the first verse he spit was just horrible. But he went back in and just killed it. But just a great record, man. I mean, you got songs like The Planet, which is one of my favorite Gang Starr songs, man. This is Guru basically telling his story of, him moving from Boston, Massachusetts, and then coming to Brooklyn, New York to start his hip hop career. And for those of you who don't know, Guru and Primo are not from New York originally. Guru is from Boston, and Primo is actually from Texas. He's actually from Houston, Texas. Well, maybe not Houston, Texas. I think Prairie View, Texas. But he's from Texas regardless. But both of them ended up moving to New York to start their careers in hip hop. But anyway, that song tells the story of Guru, his story of coming to Brooklyn. And then, Dwick, which is a classic hip hop song with Nice and Smooth. Everybody just kills it. Of course, Guru had that famous line about lemonade. He said lemonade was a popular drink, and it still is. That I don't nobody knows what he really meant by that, but it's just one of the illest lines in hip hop. It's a quotable line in hip hop. And of course you got the big song Mass Appeal on here. What else? FALA with Big Suge. That's another favorite of mine on here. Coming for that ass. The last track is a good one. Blowing Up the Spot. Just pretty much every song on this record, man. Code of the Streets, which I think was one of the singles from the record. I know they shot a video for it, man, but this is just an all around good, great hip hop album, man. And so definitely check this out, man. Hard to Earn. It's like I said, it lives up to the title, Hard to Earn, because this is definitely one of Gang Starr's hardest records. All right, so now we get to what I would say is Gang Starr's best album and probably the most complete record, released in '98. Excuse me, and that's Moment of Truth. Yeah, released in '98. So there was like a 4-year gap between this record and the previous one, Hard to Earn. Primo had really solidified himself as one of the top tier producers in hip hop, and Guru was doing his own solo stuff. With the Jazzmatazz series and other things. But yeah, Moment of Truth, man. The previous album, they took a more harder approach. But with Moment of Truth, don't get me wrong, this is still a hard record, but Premier decided to add in a bit more melody. I would say there's somewhat of more of an R&B and soulful influence on this record, because lyrically, Guru was a lot more introspective. He's not really on the socially conscious political vibe so much. He's just being more reflective, because at that time, I believe the group was kind of on the brinks of breaking up around this time. I might be incorrect about that, but I think I remember reading somewhere where they almost was getting ready to call it quits, like either before they decided to do this album or maybe after. But there was just a lot of things going on at this time, and also Guru was fighting a gun case. He got caught with a gun at the airport, which there's a phone conversation. I think it's the JFK to LAX. I think that's the skit. It's one of the songs where they talk. There's a phone conversation, the actual phone conversation about him getting popped at the airport with the gun, and he was fighting that case. So he was like reflecting on him doing time in jail for that and everything. So a lot of great songs on here. I mean, of course, the title track, Moment of Truth, that's a classic hip hop song, and it was actually included in the movie called Lincoln Lawyer that Matthew McConaughey did about 10 years ago. It was actually included in that film. And then of course you got My Steez, Robin Hood, the Robin Hood Theory, and then Royalty featuring Casey and JoJo, which I thought was a great collaboration. I mean, Gang Starr and Casey and JoJo worked so well for that. They worked really well on that collaboration. It would have been nice to get more collaborations between them, because they killed that song. Then Above the Clouds with Inspector Deck from Wu-Tang, which that's considered another one of Inspector Deck's greatest verses. He was already coming off of the whole high profile appearance or high profile spot from Triumph from Wu-Tang Forever. His verse on there is considered one of the greatest hip hop verses of all time. He got the hip hop quotable and everything, and it raised his profile. And man, B.I. versus Friendship with M.O.P. That's like I said, that's a hard track. I mean, come on, they got M.O.P. on the song. It's gonna be hard. Then the Militia, the first Militia song with Big Suge and Freddie Fox, another hard one. Let's see, The Rap Grows Bigger. let's see here. Betrayal with Scarface is a great one. The Mall featuring G Dep and Shiggy Shaw. And most of you probably know G Dep from Bad Boy. I think this is one of his first earliest appearances. But all around, this whole album is solid, man. And it's considered one of their best records overall. Moment of Truth is considered it's considered actually their best album overall by most people and most fans. But just a great record. And I also want to say that Moment of Truth seems to be the most accessible Gang Starr album. And what I mean is that usually when I go to record stores, this is the album I usually see the most. I don't really see the other albums too much anymore in record stores, but this one I always see a lot. So it's their most accessible album right now. Okay, so moving on, we're getting to the final Gang Starr album released in Guru's lifetime, because unfortunately Guru passed away back in 2010 after battling cancer and so forth. But way before that even happened, him and Premier, aka Primo, put out this album, and that's the Ownerz, released in 2003. Now I remember when this record came out, because the song Skills used to get played on BET's Rap City in the basement quite a bit. And it was that song and the one that they did with Jadakiss on here. Yeah, Right Where You Stand. The song they did with Jadakiss, Right Where You Stand. Both of those songs used to get played on BET's Rap City quite a bit back then. So I remember seeing promo ads for this record and everything. But a solid record. A solid record. With this record, they went back to the more harder approach. I would say like Daily Operation, Hard to Earn type style. They went back to that harder edge. Like the beats are more harder, more sparse and hard hitting. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, they just went back to that approach, man. But I think it was a solid. I think it's a solid record, man. Some of my favorites on here, Put Up or Shut Up. Let's see here, Sabotage, Right Where You Stand, Skills. I want to say Skills. I don't know, man. They should have did a West Coast remix of that song, man. Or maybe they did and I just ain't never heard it, man. But man, every time I listen to that song, I'd be like, man, wouldn't it have been dope if they made like a West Coast remix of Skills and they had like Corrupt from the Dog Pound, maybe Snoop, like Razzcast, or man, I'm trying to think, man, who else, man? Like if they just made like a West Coast remix, maybe Trey D from the East Siders, or like Badass, R.I.P. to him. Like if they had a West Coast remix, man, or something like that, I don't know, because to me that song just sounds like something that had a West Coast influence, man. Like that you would just pop in your ride and then a low rider and just bounce to, man. But anyway, Deadly Habits is a good one. Let's see, Nice Girl, Wrong Place. I like that. More of that hip hop R&B collaboration, which Gang Starr did really well. And let's see, Who Got Guns? I know Immobilarity, one who's also a part of a Speak Your Cloud podcast. I know he said in a video talking about this album that, because he's from New York. He's from New York originally, and he said that when this album came out, Who Got Guns was huge in New York. Like everywhere, every neighborhood, every hood was bumping that song. But yeah, that's got Fat Joe and MOP. So I mean, that's a hard one. Capture, Militia Part 3 with Freddie Fox and Big Suge. Let's see. Oh yeah, Zoning. Zoning is probably my number one favorite song off of this album. I just like that. I just like that track, man. It's like, man, that sample and that beat. It's like that mellow sample, man. And I don't smoke, but it's like one of them songs that you might spark a L to, man. That's the type of song it has. You might just spark one to and just ride to. That's the type of vibe that song has. And man, Guru just comes on the track and just kills it, man. And the way he kills it is so nonchalantly. It's like he just gets on the mic and says, "Man, I got this, man." And he just goes through with that smooth flow and those wicked lyrics, man. And he just does it. Because one of my favorite lines from that song is, "You owe me," is it Uh, you owe me, boy. You know me, boy. You want to end up in my trunk dying slowly, boy. I might have got those two first lines mixed up, but that's one of my favorite lines from that track, man. But oh yeah, Snoop Dogg's on here. Snoop Dogg's on here. On the song called "In This Life," because Primo produced on the "Paid the Cost to Be the Boss" album around this time. But and that's another thing, man. Primo and Snoop need to do more music together. But that's neither here or there. But yeah, man, the Ownerz, man, like I said, this was the last album that came out in Guru's lifetime. It's a solid record, man. It's really not a bad way to end it, honestly, man. It's a little creepy though, because the last song is called Eulogy on the song, which they started with the Moment of Truth, where they start shouting out people that passed away and everything. Then, Guru passed away years later, so it's kind of weird, but yeah, it's not a bad album for them to end it on back then. And now, but like I said, yeah, solid record, man. The Ownerz, man, definitely get it, solid, man. And now we come to what is officially now the final Gang Starr album. This came out 2 years ago. One of the best, released in 2019. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Imagine my surprise when I heard that another Gang Starr album was coming out. I was like, how is that possible? How is that possible that another Gang Starr album was coming out? So yeah, this is the seventh and final, at least this is what it's saying on Wikipedia, album from Gang Starr. So basically what happened, Guru passed away back in 2010, and there was a whole controversy about that, because he allegedly left a letter saying that he didn't want Premier involved in anything after his death, which has been called into question. But I'll let you guys look that up and research that. But yeah. So what happened was, I believe Guru and Premier, Guru's estate, his family and Premier, they're basically running like Guru's estate, I think, and the Gang Starr name. Like I think Premier, I think Premier owns the Gang Starr name now. I think he runs that. I think him along with Guru's family, his family members and stuff. I think they all run that now. So somehow, I guess through some legal action and everything, they managed to obtain a bunch of like unused and unheard verses that Guru had been working on. And then this is after Gang Starr had broke up and he was working with his new producer named Solar. So Guru had a bunch of unreleased like verses that weren't finished. So they were able to obtain those verses and everything. And Premier, he constructed a whole nother Gang Starr album around that. And I have to be honest with you, man, I think one of the best yet. It's actually really good. It's actually pretty good. I was a little skeptical about this. I was like, because how they did the whole Tupac situation after Better Days. But this is Primo. This is Primo and Guru's family involved in all of this. So it's a solid record. It's a solid album. I gotta tell you. Now there are some moments. Of course, Guru is no longer with us, and there are some moments where you can tell, like yeah, you can tell that Guru, these were like unfinished verses that he didn't get to complete. You can tell, but for the most part, a lot of times when I put this album on, I sometimes I feel like I'm listening to an actual Gang Starr album, like Guru was there in the studio and recorded this. That's the way it feels sometimes. I mean, they Premier and whoever else was involved, man, they did a real good job in constructing these tracks around Guru's vocals, and this album sounds like a Gang Starr record in my opinion. Now, there's maybe a song like Get Together featuring Neo and Eddie Sky. It's a little lackluster, but it's not a terrible song. But for the most part, every track on here sounds like something that Guru would have spit on. Like this sounds like that one more album that Premier wanted to do with Gang Starr, man. And a lot of great songs. You got Family and Loyalty featuring J. Cole, which I'm not the biggest J. Cole fan. I don't listen to J. Cole on a regular basis, but his verse on that song really made me like tune into him a little bit more. And a lot of great tracks on here. What's Real featuring Group Home and Royce the 5'9". That's a killer track right there. And that's the most Gang Starr sounding track on the album, in my opinion. That song sounds like something that could have been on Moment of Truth in some ways, man. It does. And let's see what else. Take Flight, Militia Part 4 with Big Suge and Freddie Fox. That's a dope one. Let's see, Bring It Back Here. From a Distance with J. Rue the Damager. Lights Out with M.O.P. Bad Name. Hitman with Q-Tip. I mean, the only thing about Hitman, I wish Q-Tip had a verse on there. Q-Tip was only regulated to the hook, and I don't know, the hook kind of sounds a little weird when I listen to it. I just wish Q-Tip would have had a verse, because I feel like that's a song that he could have really killed it on. But excuse me there. But yeah, for the most part, man, I think this is a solid record. And yeah, Primo really did his thing on here, man. He really did his thing, man. I think, yeah, I ordered this from Fat Beats. Fat Beats was selling this. I pre-ordered it. Yeah, as soon as they announced like physical copies coming out, because I think they did the digital release first and then physical copies. As soon as they announced physical copies, man, I pre-ordered it from Fat Beats, man. And yeah, man, it's a great record, man. Like it truly feels like that one last Gang Starr album that Primo always talks about. He wished that him and Guru could have done, but he did a great job. And how he like constructed those songs around those unused verses, man. Because like I said, sometimes when I'm listening to this album, it kind of sounds like, it kind of feels as though maybe Guru had been there recording those songs, man. So they knocked this one out the park, man. And like it says on Wikipedia, this is the 7th and final Gang Starr album. So I don't know. I'm guessing this is it. But who knows? Because I don't know how many unused verses they had. But I don't know, man. But if it is the final album, man, I think they ended it on a high note. And big props to DJ Premier, because he really did a heck of a job, man. He did a wonderful job making this record, man. And shout out to everybody that contributed, man. Like Group Home, M.O.P., J. Rue, everybody that contributed to the album. Because it's a really good record. But yeah, that's it for this video. I just wanted to show you guys. I wanted to revisit my Gang Starr collection since, I didn't think that older video was really all that good. And plus, they got this album, one of the best yet. They came out 2 years ago. I just wanted to go ahead and revisit my Gang Starr CD collection and, just, do a better video. Pretty much. That's what I wanted to do. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're somebody that's watching who is not familiar with Gang Starr, man, I hope this video inspires you to go and check out their discography, because Gang Starr is one of the greatest hip-hop duos of all time. And they're one of the few musical acts who have the distinction of not having a bad record at all. Even their first album, even though I'm not a big fan of the first record that much, I would never say that's a terrible record. You know what I'm saying? But they're just one of those groups that had a solid discography throughout their whole run. And R.I.P. to Guru, you know what I'm saying, passed away back in 2010. And peace to DJ Premier, Guru's family, his son, because his son looks just like him if you've seen some of those videos for one of the best yet. Because his son had dreads and he cut them off, and he looks just like Guru, man. So peace, shout out to his son and the whole Keith Elam family, all of them, man. Peace to everybody that's keeping the Gang Starr foundation, legacy, and everything going. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you can do me a favor, like the video, hit that thumbs up, because it helps to give my videos more exposure. And subscribe to the channel. I got plenty of other videos on here. CD collection videos, albums ranked, tier list, album reviews, some early podcast episodes that I was experimenting with last year. just hit the subscribe button, check me out, and I hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and as always, love, peace, and music. Peace out.